All right, everybody. This is my patch notes rundown for 15.6. We've done this disclaimer a few times, but once more, I don't work at Riot. I know it sounds like at times, especially when I'm just having discourse around the game, it might sound like I'm even a Riot employee, but I do not work there. I'm a content creator. I also think that I do a pretty good job interpreting what Riot does, but sometimes they're just going to make changes that are somewhat pretty inexplicable. Like I can't really say like why they're doing it. It might actually be something future for the future as well. And that's sort of, the downside of me doing it versus someone like more, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. So the featured picture though does tend to have something to do with the patch. And I do think that Lee Sin is going to be a really interesting champion. If you like Lee Sin and you love 5 costs. Liar, he is right. No, I'm not Riot. I promise you. Okay, so let's start by previewing what happened the previous patch.
Man, I'm getting marked on.
So this is a current screenshot from the TFT Academy tier list, and we can just kind of go through how the patch actually developed. In the very first week of the patch, we kind of caught on to the fact that Star Guardians was going to be really dominant, and just turned out that Star Guardians and more Star Guardians, people knew that this was going to be the case, and they asked for a B patch, but then no B patch came. And then not only was Star Guardians really dominant, but it was also variations thereof of Star Guardians like Tiny Team, which actually created an interesting dynamic. I think the funny thing about Star Guardians is that because it was so powerful, wow, Tom, thank you. Because they're so powerful, it's one of the few comps that you can actually like sort of flex. You can play 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Star Guardian, depending on what ends up happening and your justification for it. But I think that's sort of like it came at a cost of it being overrepresented. There's also other comps like Kog'Maw with artifacts that are really strong, and the whole monster toggling thing. Although that's another element about what's going to be happening in this patch is that there is no monster toggling, but everyone was doing it anyways. It just turns out there's 54 copies of monsters in the pool. If you find 3 copies of Kog'Maw, 3 copies of Smolder, 3 copies of Rammus, it's just 54 minus 9. It's not like 18 Smolders, 18 Kog'Maws. We thought it was, but yeah. Another big element of this patch that I think people probably didn't actually talk about a lot because Star Guardian sort of took all the spotlight was that Crystal Gambit was actually quite rampant and overpowered. Specifically, Crystal Gambit was one of the only ways that you could keep up in the patch if you didn't have a high roll opener. Because the reality is a lot of these comps, you can play them if you have a good opener. You can play Yuumi if you have a strong, Syndra opener with Battle Academia and Prodigy. You could play Soul Fighter if you're ahead, right? You could play like, any of these reroll comps if you're like Viego if you're ahead and you have like good Viego items, but it's just really hard to play it from behind. And so what was a very common strategy for a lot of players was to play Crystal Gambit if anything remotely resembled you not win streaking. You just play Crystal Gambit on stage 3 and stage 4 and cash it out. Very similar to Heartsteel, if you remember from the previous sets in Remix Rumble and set 10. People would just be playing like a bunch of Crystal Gambit and cash out at the end of stage 4 and try to go for a fast 9 or play whatever comp that they want. And there's also some new comps. I put that in quotation marks because Akali came back. She is going to get addressed this patch. So if you are a Akali hater, some people who hate Akali even know that she's beatable. They just hate losing against her. She's getting tapped this patch. Mentor and Janna was like a new comp that's created through Fruits. That was also a pretty dominant reroll. I think most people consider it to be the best reroll line. A Katarina started becoming more popular as the patch developed because she was one of the counters to the meta. Like Katarina could duel Akali, and she was pretty good at punishing 1-star Jinx if there's 3 people Star Guardian. So and Katarina also got pretty big buff, so she ended up being a really big. She got a big surge there. The other thing about this patch, too, that I'm sort of covering right now is that there was also an unannounced change to the patch that 2-1 augments are actually tailored. If you don't know what that means, basically on 3-2 and 4-2, you get augments that are offered based on your current board state. So if you're offered a Star Guardian emblem, it's because you have Star Guardians on your board. But that's not supposed to happen on 2-1. And for whatever reason, this is where, again, I don't work at Riot, so I don't know the information about it, but you actually can get tailored augments. And that actually created a couple of impact. First of all, if you play Soul Fighters on your board, you can get like a Soul Fighter emblem, right? If you play Sargon on your board, you can get Tiny Team. So you can get really, really insane, strong augments. But the other side of that was that hero augments weren't really showing up. So we were actually playing a patch that felt like there was almost like no hero augments, which I guess is that even a bad thing per se? I think a lot of people were like, you know what, that's not even that bad. Maybe I actually enjoy like a low amount of hero augments, but it definitely felt it was less popular. All right, so that's where we're currently at, and I think we can stop talking about this current patch. Let's talk about the new one. This is our table of contents. It's overall going to be a smaller patch. And that's because the previous 2 to 3 patches have been enormous. And not only have they been enormous, every patch except for the previous one has had a B patch, sometimes even C patch and D patch in the infamous cases. So they're going to go lighter. It's also important to note that this is not going to be the patch for regionals and the world championships. So this is the patch for the final Tacticians Cup, which is basically a last chance qualifier for anyone who cares about competitive. So the next patch is going to be the one. 15.7 is going to be for regionals. Just to give you a little brief overview of something, there's going to be a large augment balance patch. It's probably going to be one of the largest amount of augment changes they've done in terms of like things, but it's basically the last batch of augments that I feel like they are probably going to try to take a big swing at. I think they're going to try to do some minor tweaks for the next patch. They're also reintroducing the mech prismatic augments. That'll be fun to look at. We'll see if they work, but you'll see why. You'll see what they do. They're basically going to restructure a little bit. There's going to be a lot of 5-cost buffs. They're buffing 5 costs, which I think is going to have some pretty big impacts on the meta. Specifically, if you also click on certain augments that give you 2-star 5 costs a little bit earlier than most people hit them. Aura farming. They're also changing monster trainer bag sizes straight up. This is one thing that maybe if you actually looked at the preview of the PB patch, stuff like that, it's something they didn't say, but they're actually just straight up changing the monster trainer bag size. And then in a big marketing push, as you guys may have seen some of the trailers for the new fighting game 2XKO for Riot. Fun game. It's also free to play if you want to check it out. No, hashtag no ad. It's just a fun game. They're trying to do some cross marketing by adding a new wave of power-ups specifically themed after 2XKO. So that's something to look forward to. Okay. The first change, and this is actually something that probably only affects a small portion, like a very, very small portion, but they're actually introducing a streamer mode to the game. This is mainly for League of Legends, but it actually works for TFT, where you get 3 options to maintain privacy based on what you want. 1, you can hide other names, but your identity will still be visible to other players, but you can hide other people's names, especially if you don't want those to be revealed on your stream. 2, you can hide your own name and hide your own Riot ID, and it also blocks third-party apps, but you still can have your account progression and everything visible. Or 3, you can hide everything and try to disappear off the grid. I don't even know what they're going to say. Maybe they'll say the name of your little legend. But yeah, if you are a person that hates getting stream sniped, if you're a person that just generally doesn't want to get harassed, like maybe you're a cutesy, dainty, person on the internet and you're just getting harassed because people think you're cute and they just want to keep doing whatever and you just don't like that, you could hide if any other way. So you don't have to be a streamer. It's not like a streamer privilege thing, but it is an option available for you. But this is actually mainly for League of Legends, so not really for TFT. But hey, some people want that. So encounter. So this is the only system change that we have listed. Artifact Anvil encounter has been disabled. We're no longer going to have artifact starts. So you will no longer see the Luden's Ari. You'll no longer see the fish bones. You'll no longer see the Innerving Locket $3 Garen, as people are joking, because Garen, when you have a 2-star Garen with Locket, it's pretty insane. What else am I thinking about? Like, Sniper's Focus Yasuo, so on and so forth. There's a lot of insane, powerful combos. Artifact, Anvil Encounter has been disabled. And you know what? They're probably going to bring it back in the future, but for now, artifacts are too problematic. 07. Let's move on to traits. Traits. Crystal Gambit Stage 4. They're changing Crystal Gambit again. This is probably the 5th. I think every patch, I'm pretty sure it's true. Every patch since the beginning, I think they've done something Crystal Gambit. They're doing it again. They're nerfing Crystal Gambit, as you heard, way too good, especially in Stage 4. They're reducing the multiplier now. And specifically, they're also nerfing Crystal Gambit 7 again. They're just thinking 7 Crystal Gambit, if you get it snowballing, is just too good, especially if you get it on really fast because you have something like Trainer Golems or whatever. They're just slowly but surely cutting down the Crystal Gambits 7 more and more. But we'll see. We'll see if this means that Crystal Gambit is unplayable. As a spoiler, they are buffing Ash. So if you're like, oh my god, they're nerfing Crystal, that was the one way you can play Ash. There's some Ash buffs coming. Second, Mighty Mech is getting an adjustment. It's getting 7 Mech itself is getting nerfed from the cast damage. So it's going to scale off of AP a lot less. But they're buffing 5 Mighty Mech. And I think what they're trying to do is create 7 Mighty Mech less about all or nothing Yone. If you hit Yone, you hit the mech, you're online. And by the way, you have to hit the Yone, you have to hit the mech, and you have to hit the right fruits. There's a lot of intensity around those couple turns. They're trying to reduce that gap, make 5 Mighty Mech feel more playable and more like you have buffer room. And who knows, maybe this ends up creating mech flex. Maybe play 5 Mighty Mech sorcerers, maybe play 5 Mighty Mech executioners, maybe play 5 Mighty Mech whatever else is available traits. Probably not duelist, but maybe this creates more options as well. But for now, that's the intent of it. It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal to reduce it by 20 mana, especially because Mech is a tank. So Mech actually gains mana from receiving damage. So we'll see how that ends up being. Kind of like Black Rose. Yeah, it could be a little bit like Black Rose in that sense. And then Monster Trainer. Monster Trainer no longer has unique bag rules. So before, we had all these theories, but basically there was 54 copies of the unit in the pool. In the patch notes, the patch notes are actually live right now. So if you look at the official patch notes, it says 18 to 22. That's actually misleading. The official patch notes says 18 to 22. It's actually 54 to 22. And now all Monster Trainer will count as one unit. So now you can't actually 3-way Kog'Maw 3 or Smolder 3 or Rammus. If 2 people are contested, they probably can hit. It's still going to be hard. It's still going to be hard. You still don't want to be contested. 22 is nice because the standard bag is 18 for most 3 costs. That's Jace, Darius, that's Yasuo, that's Swain, right? That's the 18 size. 22 is still a decent size, but you definitely cannot 3-way it, not even close. So, oh, also another element too is that if all 22 are gone, they will now remove it from your shop. What was happening before was it would actually give you an empty shop, which was a bug. I think that should be fixed. Well, I'm describing. Okay, let me back up. Some people aren't familiar with what I'm talking about. If you were re-rolling for Kog'Maw and Lulu and all 54 copies were out, what ended up happening was you would just literally lose a shop slot. It would just show an empty slot as if you had bought something when you rolled, but it didn't. This should theoretically fix it, but again, that's not written officially in the patch notes. So I believe that is what is intended. We'll see. Second set of traits for the buffs and nerfs. Soul Fighter health is going to be nerfed a little bit. Soul Fighter, I don't think anyone really asked for this, but this data does suggest that Soul Fighter is very, very good if you get the emblem. It's sort of like emblem check, so to speak, but they are tweaking down Soul Fighter just a touch. This should probably just make it that means Soul Fighter is still more dependent on the emblem. I personally disagree that Soul Fighter needs to get nerfed. I think it's actually in a fine spot. It's like one of those things you can play if you have a good spot for it. The opener is really powerful, but you kind of run into some mid-game problems with like Kalista. This also like incidentally nerfs some other elements like Viego reroll and whatnot and Lux reroll, but they're buffing Lux reroll as well, so we'll see. I think this is probably purely off of the fact that Soul Fighter is performing really well in the stats. And then Star Guardian is getting a pretty significant nerf in a few ways. They're nerfing the traits. They're nerfing the power-ups. You guys will see what I'm talking about. Star Guardian Zaya bonus is now reduced, and as well as the Jing's attack speed bonus. And remember, it's not just for the units themselves, but for the whole team. So Star Guardian is getting taken down in a couple different bets. It's not like one giant nerf to anything individually, because I think they like elements of Star Guardian being flexible the way they reworked it, like we talked about. But they definitely need to take it down a peg or two. One cost champions, no changes. So I guess I think one costs are in a good spot. I don't know about any one cost I would personally feel like I have to take down. I think they are in a good spot. I guess like like all the openers are pretty good if you have a spot for it or conditional. Like the bad one costs are like Kale, but you're not really supposed to be holding Kale anyways unless you're trying to play into that line. And she ends up being a really good reroller as well. So looks like we're gonna go for no one cost champion changes this patch, and that is important because they do change some other things like one cost hero augments, which we'll talk about in a bit. Two costs. They are going to be buffing attack damage and resistance for Gangplank. And this is because they need to give help to duelists and they want to make that like 5 mech feel better. So Gangplank's getting buffed multiple patches in a row. They buffed his attack speed last patch, which is pretty significant. And I even predicted that Gangplank would be pretty good. And he's actually a decent opener now. I mean, I don't know if you guys have still played around Gangplank, but every now and then, if you find a GP, it still can be pretty good. So now GP, I mean, base attack damage is one of the biggest things you can buff, especially to a duelist who attacks a lot and casts, and they're making him tankier. So we'll see. Stretchy arms is no longer back. Maybe GP reroll is a thing again. I don't think so, but you'll see what they do to the other duelists. In 3 costs land, they're buffing Ahri. They're buffing Ahri. Her overkill damage is going to go from 55 to 80%. They're nerfing some Star Guardians, and they're buffing Ahri. You guys will see why. Should I tell you now, or should I tell you later? Should I tell you now, or should I tell you later? You know what? I kind of like the reaction, but basically, if you are worried about Ahri, there is some things that's happening later. Tell us now. They're removing Luden's Tempest from the game. No, Luden's Tempest is not a thing. So if you're worried, like, oh my god, they're buffing Ahri, what about the Luden's Ahri? Luden's is no longer an artifact in the game. So now you have an Ahri, and they can buff her. And you know, the reality is, Ahri is not really a champion that a lot of people play in Star Guardians. If you actually look at some of the recommendations for how to play Jinx, for example, or Star Guardians, you might notice that almost none of them play Ahri on any of the variations of the board because Ahri generally is not that great unless you can primary her and really lean into her, and even then you don't really do that much. So they're buffing Ahri, and maybe Ahri reroll could be a thing, especially if Star Guardians are a lot less popular. They nerf Jinx, they nerf Xayah, they nerf a bunch of other things. It's possible that Star Guardians are less popular. Now you can actually go for Ahri reroll. They're trying to make it better, so we'll see. Hashtag victims of statistics. Rest in peace, man. We hardly knew you. Man, that emo lasted for what, like 2 days? They're buffing Rammus. Rammus is clearly the worst performing monster trainer in the patch. They did a bunch of reworks for monster trainer. Kog'Maw was good. Smolder was bad, but Rammus was horrendous. So they're just buffing Rammus. These are huge buffs, right? Because the more HP he has, the more likely he's able to cast. The more he's able to cast, the more he's able to stay healthy because he gains max HP. So it's a pretty big deal. Definitely, if you get a chance to try out Rammus as your front line, who knows? Maybe you pair both these together. You play Rammus Sorcerers or something. Who knows? I'm not sure. They're buffing Smolder as well. Smolder has been underperforming pretty significantly relative to Kog'Maw. The meta had gravitated towards any spot that you would want to play Smolder, you should just be playing Kog'Maw, and they even use similar items like Shojin. You can do like Shojin, and then instead of going for anti-resistances, you can go for anti-heal like red buff. So Smolder is just pretty much inferior to Kog'Maw almost in every way right now. Damage and the utility is like about equal. So they're buffing Smolder. It's a pretty significant amount of buff at 3-star. This is a pretty huge thing, especially because Smolder tends to be very burst oriented. So don't sleep on Smolder 3 potentially. Udyr 2. Oh, sorry. They're buffing Udyr at every level. So they're buffing Gangplank and they're buffing Udyr, right? So the duelists are getting some buff. They're buffing specifically the heal of Udyr and trying to make him a little bit more reliable for the duelist composition, especially if you're tanking Udyr. So duelist getting yet another buff. And then Yasuo's getting a sentence. He's getting a sentence. The base spell is less likely to hit backline when other units are nearby. Now, I read this sentence, and I guess what it means is that if there's a tie scenario where other frontline is equidistant to backline. I guess it's like biased to hitting more frontline than Yasuo's spell hitting the backline. And if so, that's a big deal. It's basically basically tanks have taunt against Yasuo's ability, and that's a really big deal for Yasuo reroll lines, because part of what made Yasuo really good is that you can kind of target the 3 nearest units, but it would hit backline a lot of times and assassinate. So, you know, if they're nerfing things like Luden's Ari, or like, I mean, straight up removing it, what about other strong reroll lines? This Yasuo comp is very, very powerful. China really believes it's one of the best comps in the game. Like, China plays it like a lot. It's not as popular in the West as it is in China. But this is a pretty profound nerf. So this might actually even be one of those things where Yasuo is a lot worse now. So who knows? Over in 4-cost land, Akali is getting a light nerf. I think the word they use is that she's barely over the line. I think they said that Akali is fine-ish, but she's barely over the line. This feels like a nerf just purely to just, in my opinion, this is me not speaking for Riot anymore, but this is my opinion. I'm pretty sure this nerf doesn't do that much, and I'm pretty sure it's just to make people, so they could literally say, look, we nerfed Akali. I mean, because the thing is, the reason why people weren't entirely sure about was because we weren't itemizing Akali correctly. The double Nash's build, we found out that was the build, and so when they buffed her, that was not without the optimized itemization, and now we have figured out the optimized itemization. Akali is back in the meta, but I think now people have realized that Akali is not that hard to deal with, and she doesn't even win games. She pretty much is just like a strong stage 4, early stage 5 assassin, and then she plays for like a second and third, and try to go for top 4, and you kind of have that perfect item. So I think Akali's fine. They are buffing 3-star Akali like by a lot, but I think that's fair. I feel like 3-star 4 costs on average should be strong. It's like hard for me to understand. I'm 1500 versus 1000. Both sound like a lot, but I guess 1500 will just make sure she kills units. I think 1500 is like sometimes she just doesn't kill a backline unit. Maybe. Ashe is getting a lot of buffs. They're buffing her in a lot of small ways, and you have to remember that base attack damage is one of the biggest things they can give. Biggest buffs they can give to an AD champion, but also the spell damage itself might look like small numbers. Like, okay, they're buffing her 1-star by 3, her 2-star by 9. Okay, 9 damage, woohoo! But that's multiplied by all of her arrows, and I believe she shoots 8 arrows right now. 8. So it's a pretty sizable buff if you start running some of like the potential multiplication numbers. It's also entirely possible that Ashe is so bad, no one's even really bothered to like play her because she's really weak. And once she is buffed, maybe her itemization changes similar to Akali. It's entirely possible that there's a new set of items for Ashe with the change because she has such a big damage buff. I don't know. Who knows what we do? So there's some people who saw that. I saw some challenger players saying this doesn't matter. Ashe is still bad. I ran the math. This buff doesn't do anything. You know, what is Riot doing? I feel like these numbers, it's hard to say. We have to try before we can come to a conclusion. I will say that there's also a bug fix with Bullet Hell. It does the intended amount of damage that doubling her spell damage. I hide this in yellow because I think it sounds like a nerf. And then I asked Riot, and they replied this morning, it is a nerf. Basically, Bullet Hell was doubling her spell damage, and Bullet Hell will no longer deal double damage. And so Bullet Hell, the recommendation off of this is that Bullet Hell is probably pretty bad on Ashe, but maybe the buffs compensate for that. So it's possible that Bullet Hell is still really strong. So that's why ultimately, you know, we don't really know. There's too many numbers being changed. All right, 4-cost champions. She was bad even with the bug. That's true. The other 4-cost champion change is Ryze. Ryze is getting both a buff to his mentor and base damage. And that's really important because Ryze is also played as base Ryze in other compositions. For example, in Akali, this is actually a buff to the Akali composition because you would duo carry Ryze. Ryze is getting a pretty sizable base buff. Not just his 2-star as well, right? These numbers look pretty impressive, but the 1-star base damage is pretty significant. This is a pretty significant buff. 1-star Ryze might make that comeback. And we're also talking about like going back to what, the 5 mentor or whatever? The 5 mech? 5 mentor. 5 mech. Maybe you're playing that Rise to get to the 7 mech. Rise 1 helps you be more stable, things like that. Also, maybe more duo carry with the veteran boards. You know, Rise Janna, for example, could be really good. So Rise might go back to being one of the more desirable 4 costs, which is kind of crazy because his traits are so good. And he in general is very solid. In some cases where you're able to high roll him now, he might just be back to being where he was before, which is very, very good. All right. In 5 cost land, Lee Sin. Li Xinga. This guy is getting some love. If you guys love Lee Sin, great news. 5 resistances, so he's tankier. His Executioner version is his mini cast, and that's off of the first set of his ability casting. And when he kills, he does like an AoE, right? That stun is getting reduced, but the damage is getting buffed. And remember, he's an executioner, so the crit multiplies this by a lot. So that's a pretty sizable damage buff, right? That's pretty big. Now here's the thing: when I think he gets 3 kills, is it? When Lee Sin gets enough kills, he does a large AoE cast. That stun time is being increased from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. It's 3 kills, thank you. 2.5 seconds, which is one of the longest stuns in the game. It's one of the longest stuns in the game. So Executioner Lee Sin is going to absolutely cook if you get him off of aura farming. If you somehow high roll Lee Sin on 2, your golden quest cashes out Lee Sin. I mean, 2.5 seconds is quite a long time, especially because he might be able to start getting his mini cast again and roll them. Now, here's the other big one. Juggernaut Lee Sin. Oh my god. The single target damage is getting buffed from 525 to 800. If you look at the numbers, again, I hope I got these numbers correct, but I'm pretty sure they are. His 2-star version is now his 1-star version. So the single target damage might actually just straight up one-shot weak frontline if you have Juggernaut Lee Sin. But they are reducing his AoE. They're basically turning Lee Sin Juggernaut into a much stronger single target nuker as opposed to an AoE hex damage, right? Because the AoE, this is a pretty sizable AoE nerf. He's not going to be doing nearly as much because AoE hits multiple targets. But the number just looks crazy. That's a 50% buff if my math checks out. That is nuts. Okay, so we'll see. Lee Sin 2. Oh, man. They are nerfing aura farming, just as a little bit of a preview, but if there's anything that I've learned, that I think I'm still clicking aura farming, because if I get Lee Sin 2, it might be over. Seraphine's getting buffed. Her base damage, this should both be green. That's my mistake. Her base damage is being improved as well. They are nerfing Star Guardians to other categories. Seraphine was already pretty good in the Star Guardian cap. This makes it even better. Also, we're starting to see more Seraphine be played in other variations. For example, you guys might have seen 6 Bastion being played with 5 costs, like 6 Bastion Twisted Fate, 6 Bastion Zyra, 6 Bastion Gwen, sometimes all of them. We also saw some people playing 6 Bastion Seraphine, and that was a direct result of the previous patch buff. Maybe we'll see a little bit more things like that, where Seraphine not flex, but like you flexibly put Seraphine in whatever you're playing and have her carry. They're just trying to make her more and more easily divorced from Star Guardians. And then we have other 5 costs. We have more 5 cost change. This is the big thing that defines the patch for me. Twisted Fate is getting buffed again. Their primary spell buff is getting a spell damage increase from 230 to 350. This is, I believe, when he detonates, right? Or is it? No, actually, it's not his passive, right? It's his primary spell. So I believe is when he detonates his marks. So Twisted Fate should be stronger. Yone is getting buffed again, and remember this. They just keep buffing this number, right? The attack speed per attack. It was like low. It was lower 2 patches ago. Now it's at 4.5. Now it's at 5. So Yone just getting stronger and stronger. They're also buffing 5 mech, but nerfing 7 mech, right? This nerfing 7 mech allows them to buff Yone a little bit more. Maybe Yone is better now, and maybe you can start thinking about other edgelord variations. Who knows? Zyra is also getting another buff because they nerfed Zyra's utility a lot 2 patches ago, because they wanted to try and make Zyra a better primary carry. Because the one criticism against Fast 9 this set is that all of them are just AoE. AoE for this guy, AoE for this guy, AoE for Seraphine. Twist of Fate hits multiple targets, right? Gwen hits a whole board. I'm sure I'm missing others. Zyra was like utility, but so she wasn't really doing much. I think they want to bring back single target primary carry viability for 5 cost. So this is another buff to try to make Zyra's backline plant deal more damage. Because a lot of people just play Zyra for the frontline plant, just as tankiness. Because when you play for 5 cost, your frontline often sucks. Especially if you're on like 1-star Cassandra or 1-star Leona. So you just play the Zyra in the backline now and you get more damage. And Zyra's already pretty decent as a damage dealer. So maybe this ends up making her very, very good. Let's go into Augment Land. So Augment Land, they're nerfing hero augments in multiple ways. This is probably the biggest set of changes this patch. 9,000 volts is getting nerfed. This was, I think statistically, 9,000 volts was the best performing 1-cost hero augment. But I think, in my opinion, I think that a lot of that has to do with Protagonist, which is also going to get nerfed later on. But they are nerfing Kennen. They're nerfing Dr. Mundo again. This is back-to-back hero augment nerfs to Mundo, which I predicted that he would struggle a lot this patch. Turned out that he was still really, really good. Twilight Assault Shen is also getting nerfed. And these are just hero augment nerfs that, quite frankly, hero augments are still really good. If they nerfed everything but kept hero augments, I think it's hero augments are still going to be really strong. You also have to remember that part of the reason why hero augments don't feel that bad as much this patch is because they're quite rare, since you have to tailor for them. Now they're going to be back to being more common. Aura farming no longer grants a completed item, but it still stays at 4-3. So 4-3 is still going to be when you get to 2-star 5 cost. So going back to some of the 5 cost changes, still going to be very, very early, but you'll be able to you'll have less items, which is a big deal. If you can't itemize your 5 cost, they generally have a lot less impact. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever hit, let's say you hit Gwen 2, but you don't have any items for her whatsoever. It doesn't even do anything, right? I mean, I'm trying to think of like easy examples like that. A couple things no longer can appear on 2-1, backup dancers being one of them. I mean, that's fine. It's basically combat augments that feel like you can't take it now, but you don't mind taking them later if they're good for your comp. They're just trying to make sure to take less unclickables. In general, some people were saying to Riot, and this myself included, what if you kept augment tailoring on 2-1? It makes it feel like the game has less unclickable augments at 2-1, right? Who likes rolling 3 options at 2-1 and then seeing only 1 option that feels even remotely reasonable? No one, right? But then, the answer back was, what if we just take out more of the things that feel bad to click on 2-1 instead? Like theoretically, if we get better balance and we just remove less unclickables, that accomplishes similar things, because tailoring on 2-1 does not feel like it's good and healthy for the game. That was their reply to me. So I think that's a reasonable response. And I think this is them taking active action against it. They're buffing Big Friend. This has just been understated augments for a while. Big Friend in general. The positioning trade-off is not worth it compared to Keepers, which is also getting addressed. Blood Rage, part of that 2-1, make fewer unclickables. They are buffing the base of Blood Rage, but nerfing the top end of it. I think they're worried that Blood Rage is going to be too good if they keep it at 35. I'm not that worried about it, but hey, I mean, 12 base is a lot more than 5. So I'm looking forward to chat voting to click Blood Rage, because somebody has to click on it. Care Package bug fix. This is a pretty big deal, but if you guys don't know, Care Package doesn't work on stage 5. Care Package says now in the next 2 stages, get a little bit of a care package, get a reward. It only works on stage 3 and stage 4. So it should work on stage 5 now. The Darkness Within is getting nerfed. That's actually, that was one of the more surprising augment nerfs. Did you guys know the Darkness Within was performing pretty good? They're nerfing the amount of HP per stage that you get. So if you have one more day of jamming games, apparently the Darkness Within is broken. I guess in the compositions that you want to play it in. That's a surprise to me. And then Diversified Portfolio is nerfed. This is the one that says if you activate 3 traits, for every 3 traits you activate, get 1 gold. Just taken out. It's one of those things where it just kind of has this weird thing where in the very beginning of the game, you're unlikely to activate a lot of traits, and it just feels bad to take this augment and get punished because your shops don't offer you anything, so on and so forth. Who even clicks this? Well, the people that do apparently get LP. So you guys can get some free LP while you get a chance. Golden Quest is getting a little bit of a makeover. They're because of the changes to the 5 cost, they're also redoing some of the artifacts that you get and the items that you get off the Golden Quest. For Lee Sin, his artifact is now becoming a Death Defiance instead of an Infinity Force. For Zyra, instead of getting a Mana Zane, she's getting Flicker Blades, which I thought was fascinating. But you're no longer getting a Hextech Gunblade, you're getting a Spirit of Shojin. So you can interpret Mana Zane to Flicker Blades as worse, but the thing is, Spirit of Shojin is better than Gunblade on average. So maybe that ends up being neutral. Maybe that ends up being favoring to it. That's something that caught me off guard. Seraphine is no longer getting Archangels with Mana Zane. She's getting Jewel Gauntlet and Flicker Blades as well, which I don't know what to think about that either. Golden Quest Gwen no longer getting Dawn Core, which is largely unplayable on her, and instead getting Azonia's Paradox, which is way more versatile. So I think what they want with the Golden Quest, my interpretation of it, is less specific things and more things that could be theoretically played in late game scenarios that don't feel that bad. If you make it to Golden Quest with Flicker Blades, maybe you can find a way to use it, as opposed to have the right Mana Zane holder, have the right Dawn Core holder, have the right Infinity Force holder. We'll see. Keepers getting nerfed. This is just pretty justified. I think Keepers is overstated and way too much value. So much so that Keepers almost feels like an econ augment in the current state of the game. If you click Keepers, you're likely to win rounds. So you get gold for winning rounds and get a streak going. So Keepers is just getting nerfed. And it might look like a small nerf, but remember, it's multiplied across every shield that you get. So it's a pretty sizable nerf. And then Know Your Enemy max damage amp is now increased to 18. Now it's interesting because this was directly copy pasted from the patch notes. But I was under the impression that it's not actually damage amp that you get. It's supposed to be more damage. So you just deal, like, that's a separate multiplicative thing. Mortdog was in my chat actually talking about it. /users Mortdog. He was talking about it in chat during the tournament. I think he was saying it. Dude, this guy chats a lot. Okay, ready for the real nerd tech on this augment. He's talking about Know Your Enemy. Know Your Enemy says deal 15% more damage. It does not say 15% damage amp. Okay. This means it's multiplicative with other sources like damage amp, crit, etc. It's extremely clear it does not say damage amp. Okay. So, I mean, the thing is, I just want to know what it says. Let me go to tactics.tools, team builder, augments, Know Your Enemy. I could use TFT Academy, but in case it's wrong, your team deals 10% more damage, deal 15% more damage instead if you and your opponent have any of the same tracks active. So Mortdog is right. It literally doesn't say that. But does say max damage amp has been increased. So I don't know what to believe anymore. Either way, if it wasn't that bad, then why buff it as well? So that's one of these things where it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. I'm not entirely sure myself. I think you guys should just click Know Your Enemy and find out for me. How about that? This probably was an underrated augment this past patch, because if you clicked it and you played 2-star Guardians or whatever, chances are you could get Know Your Enemy value. Okay. We'll just make you click it. Sounds good. Let's keep chugging along. Augments, 3 out of 4. So prismatic mech augments are back. They've been reworked. There's no such thing as I'll be the arms, I'll be the legs. You only can get one mech prismatic augment now, and you can only get it at 2-1. You can only get it at 2-1. So there's no more like, I got offered this at 2-1 and I didn't get it at 3-2 because, or I didn't get it offered at 4-2, whatever. Just one augment. You get the Mighty Mech buffs. You get a unit with it. So in the gold case augment, you get 20% attack speed to Gangplank. And then you have to get to level 10 with 14 star levels. So you need to get to level 10, 14 star, which means 2-star your entire mech board. You can't just play Yone 1, Jarvan 1, Karn 1. Because what ended up happening in the past was you got to level 10, but you sell all your 2-stars and downgrade them. Instead of playing Jarvan 2, you play Jarvan 1. Instead of Karma 2, you play Karma 1. Because you need every ounce of gold you get to get to level 10. You have to 2-star your whole board, and then you activate the Prismatic Mech, which should be about the strength of a 3-star 5 cost, is what I was told by other people. So it's been reintroduced. Mech Prismatic is back. I cannot wait for my chat to force me to click this augment based off the votes, and I die at level 9 with 5 gold off, or I'm stuck on Yone pair and I can't hit Yone 2. It's just gonna happen. You just know. You just know. But tubers are back on the menu. By the way, the Prismatic does give you a set illusion in Aatrox, by the way. So if you can find a way to 2-star that, maybe that's your angle. Lit Fuse no longer appears on 2-1. Just continue to reduce the amount of bad augments you can click on 2-1. Bait augments. Max cap has been disabled. 07. Protagonist, additional champion every 3 turns. Or sorry, after 3 turns. This is because Protagonist is way too strong. So you're delaying the 4-star that much quicker. You delays your 3-star when you get it as well. So Protagonist is still going to exist. It's just you're going to probably, on average, hit your 3-star 1 cost if you pick up a couple of units by your second augment, as opposed to a lot of times you even get it at the end of stage 2. So Protagonist is just going to be delayed a little bit more. It's definitely deserving. I do think that this is Protagonist has been a big reason why 1-cost champion hero augments have been so good, but or at least in the stats have been so good. So we'll see how this impacts the rest of the stats. So people are like, why didn't they nerf Garen hero? If they nerf Ken in hero augment, why didn't they nerf the Garen in the Malphite one and the other ones? It could be just be that Protagonist is tied to that. Hard to say, right? And then, sorry, chat closed. Pumping up getting buffed, pumping up 2 and 3 specifically. These are just justified because they've just been overdue. So you definitely don't want to click that very often. And then finally, we have Tiny Team bonus, 150 to 100. Tiny Team getting a pretty sizable nerf. At one point, this was 200. Now it's just 100. So Tiny Team nerfed. Star Guardian bonus for Xayah and Jinx nerfed. And then you also see, too, they're nerfing some of their power-ups. Star Guardian is getting nerfed across the board in different ways. So we'll see how big of an impact. Is Star Guardian still playable? I certainly hope so. Unlimited power is also getting sort of a facelift here because I think this was too similar to Wand Overflow. Wand Overflow gives you 5 rods. Unlimited power gives you 4 rods and a belt that pre-made it. So a little bit too similar. So the identity has now shifted to being crit. So if you want Jewel Gauntlet and Nashers, which is a lot of comps, honestly, like it's pretty good for this specific synergy. With the rework to Nashers too, I think this is pretty smart. So now the identity for unlimited power is if you want to take crit based stuff, and you can even piece it apart, right? Let's say you take this for the Akali because you already have 1 Nashers, 2nd Nashers, and then Jewel Gauntlet can go on Rise. Rise got buffed, so hopefully in more scenarios we're able to take it. I think it's a smart buff. So those are the augment changes. Let's over to the item changes. 2 main items getting specifically focused on for this patch. The first is Ionic Spark. Ionic Spark has just not really been preferred this entire patch or this entire set. In fact, it's pretty telling that the 2 components that are most often left on Carousel every stage is Rod and Cloak. Rod and Cloak in general are very undesirable, and you're like, well, can you just make a Spark? You'd much rather prefer Void Staff than Ionic Spark pretty much across the board. The reason why Spark has been weaker is that it's not ever really a true tank item. Spark is more for offense, even though it gave a little bit of HP, a little bit of MR. But even Shroud actually gave you some defensive stats, so it could help you live a little bit longer. And this is a set where so much power is concentrated in the carry, right? You have fruits, radiance, artifacts. Your Ionic Spark just dies very quickly, and then you lose a lot of effectiveness. Versus Void Staff could stick around and spread really well. And so, and also Void Staff gave you good combat power. So they're just buffing Ionic Spark, making it better. The thing about that, though, is Radiant Ionic Spark is getting a crazy makeover. Be careful who you make fun of in middle school. What is this? 200 to 500 HP? Spark 15 to 30? Spark MR 40 to 70? That's a lot. That is a lot. I do want, so some people are like, what are they doing? And I want to this is not exactly the official explanation, but someone asked Mortdog in sub chat for my channel, and Mortdog actually replied, which I think was very nice of him. Again, this is not just like, you know, oh, Mortdog only sharing stuff with random players. He decided to just randomly chime. People were speculating about it. Oh, okay. People are saying, like, are we gonna learn anything from the previous sets? You know, it's entirely possible, because people were like, are we gonna like actually apply learnings articles or things like that to the new set? Moore says, I can say that learnings from 15 are being applied to 16. That's a lit emoji. That's some eyes emoji. And that's just a thumbs up for me. Mort Dog says, Spark needed buffs. The live team is buffing it. This has already been done for set 16, so I asked live to use the same values to avoid thrashing as long as it's acceptable in the 15 context. So what Mort was saying specifically is that the Spark buffs are in anticipation for set 16. So a couple of things in this patch are specifically being made with the future in mind as well. I don't know what that means, but that is something to consider. So hopefully that little factoid, one, gives you optimism, right? I feel like that gives us a good optimistic look, like they're trying to think about the future, right? Not just about now. And two, it makes more sense. It makes more sense. The other cloak item that people really don't like making is Bloodthirster. Bloodthirster is getting buffed for 80 and AP, and that's a sizable buff. Like, remember what happened with Giant Slayer giving it 5 damage amp? Giving 580 and AP to Bloodthirster is no joke. So maybe BT, maybe it actually will be a BT diff. Maybe it might actually be a BT diff this time. And they're also buffing some Radiants as well. Radiant Bloodthirster getting buffed. Radiant Edge Knight getting buffed. Except Radiant Nashers. Radiant Nashers getting nerfed because it is way too good on specific users like Akali. I think Radiant Nashers is like very, very good on Akali. I think it's like performing like far, far better than artifacts on her. But I didn't check the data in a while. It was low sample size. So they are nerfing that aspect of it. These gloves can now roll higher tier combinations based on the player levels instead of solely rolling off of game stage. This is a change to these gloves. I think this is a buff to these gloves. Basically, these gloves has 2 different ways that it was gated based off the state, like based off time and your player level. But now these gloves, if you like are over leveled relative to your stage, you can actually get higher tier combinations. So this should be a buff to these gloves. I didn't highlight these values. Sorry. Wow. Frodan really slacking. Dawncore is getting nerfed a little bit. Specifically, Dawncore Cogmaw. Blade Jewel is getting buffed for AP, but nerfed in terms of the mana gain. Sorry, I'll change this after. I'm going to distribute the slides. I'll change the colors. Luden's Tempest has just been removed from the game. Luden's Tempest is no longer with us. In 07 to Luden's Tempest, you were used for exactly one purpose. Actually, 2 purposes. At one point, people were playing Luden's Tempest on Jhin. And I guess that 5-hour window where it was literally broken on Kalista. But, you know, no one's going to be missing Ludens. Just specifically for Ahri. But not Ahri with snipers. Hashtag victims of statistics. Fishbones is getting a giant stat boost. 50% AD, 50% attack speed, but it no longer doubles the range. It no longer doubles the range. And that's a pretty profound difference of what it was before. What does that mean? What does that mean for Fishbones? Does that mean that now you can play it on some users that have good range, but they would really love these stats? Ashe, for example, could you go Fishbones Ashe? And she just does a lot more now because they're buffing Ashe like a lot. Who knows? Mittens is getting buffed, and Talisman Ascension got an HP buff last patch, but they're getting buffed again. Sorry about the lack of colors. I know you guys are here. Like, if I'm not doing the colors, then what am I even doing? All right, power-ups. They're adding new power-ups to the game in honor of 2x KO. They have some champion-specific power-ups now. Ahri is getting something called Stalking Dart. Every 10 mana, Ahri gets a Foxfire dart towards her target, dealing 5% of her spell's damage as magic damage. And if you're wondering what's going on here, these are actually the abilities of the units in 2x KO. So, like, you can also Stalking Dart Ahri. This is very purposeful. It's just a marketing thing. And this might create more comps, right? If you look at some of the TFT Academy tier list, a handful of these are fruit based, right? Mentor Janna is completely fruit enabled. Well, okay, I mean, there's a lot like they took out some of the other ones like Stretchy Arms and Tricksters and Fusion Dance, but you get what I'm trying to say. We'll see more of that potentially. Yasuo gets a pretty crazy one, which is 60% crit chance. That's just like a ton of crit chance. So that's just that feels like to me like just that's like a lot. And he takes 15% reduced damage from non-adjacent enemies, which is weird wording, from non-adjacent enemies. So he takes 15% reduced damage from range units, I guess, from units that aren't next to him. Snacks times. Braum's casts also throw 5 poros at random enemies. Each deal 200% of Braum's base attack damage as physical damage. This is safe for poros. Braum is a professional. That sounds really good if you build around Luchador and a bunch of AD on Braum. Maybe it's like Infinity Edge, Giant Slayer, Steris Gauge Braum, Snacks time, and now all of a sudden he Poro Bombs AoE. That sounds insane to me. Attempt number 37. Echo's spell prioritizes the closest enemies, but he heals 20% max HP on cast and deals 6% more magic damage each time his spell hits a target. So now, maybe a reason to fruit on the Echo. Before, if you actually look at Echo's fruits, none of them actually feel good. People are fruiting Echo? No. People should not really be fruiting Echo, but now maybe you can think about it. So there's an issue. And the thing to remember too is the weight is 15. This means that it's one of the more common ones. The standard weight for is 10. So 15 is 50% more likely. Assuming that's how it works. Server God, thank you so much, man. Super Mega. Jinx gains 20% AD. Every third cast is twice as big and splits 50% more damage among enemies hits. This accidentally leaked to live. Earlier this patch, actually, I didn't talk about it at the very beginning, but this accidentally actually was on live. And so some people were getting it for free, but they hotfixed that. Thankfully, that didn't stay. But yeah, the Super Mega Death Rocket is back. And you know what? Maybe with this, it's no longer Gather Force, which we'll talk about. They're nerfing Gather Force. It's now Super Mega. Denting Blows, Vi Spell Shield now for 4 seconds instead of healing, but is now increased by 25%. When converted, strike quickly 4 times. Each hit reducing the target resists by 5. That one sounds like the weakest to me, but I guess it's like good for the hero augments. Maybe you're supposed to only take it for hero augment instead of regular vibe. But yeah, these are all champion specific. So maybe we'll see 6 new comps arise or 6 new variations of comps. We'll see. Now here comes some of the more complicated ones, and this is all data mined, by the way. And these are things that I added in. So if the formatting looks weird, it's because literally like I added these squares in. So hopefully these are all accurate. But Double Down is that's another power up or fuse you can get into XKO. Gain 18% damage amp. When this unit casts, your other power-up units gets 20% of the mana spent. So you're basically linking 2 champions. So you can link Ari plus X. It could be like a mana battery. Quick Tag. On death, spawn a unit of the same role with the same number of items. This unit is 1 cost lower and has 15% reduced health. So move aside round 2. Instead of round 2, you get Quick Tag. A unit of the same role with the same number of items, random units, random stuff. Kind of wild. Tentacle Smash. After 4 seconds, stun enemies with 3 hexes for 1 second. Repeat every 9 seconds. So Tentacle Smash, 1 hex AoE, 4 seconds, 13 seconds, 22 seconds. That sounds crazy to me to be able to go for 3 stuns in a fight if it lasts that long. So we'll see how good that is. You can get it on Poppy, Set, Zac, Vi, Aatrox, and Mundo. Noxious Trap. This one is one of the ones that catches a lot of people's eyes. Damage dealt, burns, wounds, shreds, and sunders enemies for 4 seconds. 2 items, 1.8 items in 1 power-up. And you can put that on Malzahar, Twisted Fate, Ezreal, Janna, and Senna. So, if you ever find yourself lacking anti-heal or shred or sunder or perhaps all those things, you could Noxus Trap them. So It's something that we might be seeing more often. And just to let you guys know, they're going to be adjusting pools. Like, why would you ever take Noxious Trap over Sky Piercer? As a preview, they are removing Sky Piercer on these units, I think. So you can get Noxious Trap instead. It's 20 versus 30%. You're right. But the fact that you even get there is a really big deal. Rocket Grab. At the start of combat, gain a 20% health shield for 4 seconds. When your target dies, pull the next target into melee range and regain the shield. This one is supposed to, I guess they don't want to do Rocket Grab, Blitzcrank, because these are all champions into SKO. Tentacle Smash is Alawi, she's in the game. Blitzcrank is in the game. Teemo's in the game. At combat start, gain 20% health shield for 4 seconds. When your target dies, pull the next target and melee and regain. That also sounds like very abusable for protectors, so that they're putting it on protectors. This sounds really good on like Rakan 3 and Cassante 3. So we'll see how good. I mean, this might be broken too. Who knows? Fury Break. Gain 25% attack speed. When your other power-up unit dies, gain a burst of 300% attack speed that decays over 4 seconds. If you die first, give them the burst instead. So Fury Break into SKO is if you are getting pressured at any point, you can press Fury Break and it resets the neutral. Like, if they're comboing you, it pushes them back all the way across the screen, and you're safe now. So they're trying to replicate that. And so they're trying to create some like tag team because you have 2 fruits. Oh, because you have 2 fruits, you can like have them work together. You know, I have a personal theory. This is my theory, but I'm pretty sure 2XKO was supposed to release earlier in the year because 2XKO got deleted so many times. And I think that actually even made the TFT team design. Like, why did they make 2 fruits? It's probably because they were supposed to synchronize the marketing with 2XKO and TFT and then have things like the fruits interact with them in a much more 2XKO-y way. So it actually makes more sense. Anyways, I'm starting to see a little bit of design connections like from a long time ago. Okay, because I was like, why couldn't they just make it 1 fruit and then it would have been like less problematic or something like that? But now, I'm putting it together. I'm putting it together. 2x KO Coliseum. Oh, okay, not bad. All right, 2x Contender. Vi, Ari, Darius, Yasuo, Jinx, Braum, and Echo gain 4% damage amp and 2% durability for each unique copy fielded. This unit gains 75% more. So literally, if you just play every unit in 2XKO, you get a team. But so a new comp has literally been made. Yeah, we can just literally put this as a comp, right? If you field all these units, you get all this damage amp. That is the new trait. You just literally play all the 2XKO characters. Because I'm pretty sure all of these plus Teemo Warwick are in the game. Or Alawi. I guess they should find a way to get Alawi in. No synergy. I mean, the synergy is the power-up fruit, though. Like 4% damage amp times 7 is 28% damage amp. That's reasonable. It's pretty good. 2XKO. After 2 takedowns, stun enemies within 2 hexes for 2 seconds. And gain 35% damage amp for 2 rest of combat. That also sounds potentially very good if a Darius reroll. You Darius reroll. Darius resets, kills, stuns enemies for 2 seconds. Wait a second. That sounds potentially crazy. Whoa. Okay. Corner carry, also Volibear, by the way, could also do it. Corner carry, gain 30% attack speed at 75% and 25% health. Dash to the safest position and gain infinite range. So Ashe can dash, Xayah can dash, Jinx will dash, Kai'Sa will dash, and gain infinite range. Interesting. This one doesn't sound that good to me, but it sounds cool. Corner carry Fishbones. Oh, I see. Corner carry Fishbones. Okay. I mean, either way, this is some of the most big things they can change at the game, right? Because this literally creates new comps. This upends the meta. Who cares how good Star Guardians is post if these are all the best comps in the game now? Corner carry Kai'Sa is broken on PBE. Okay. Well, I mean, how do you guys know that? Are some of you guys jamming PBE? Here are some of the other power-up changes, by the way. System changes. This is a pretty big one. Pay attention. Power-ups that require traits will also filter on stage 2. Previously, trait requirements were ignored. For example, Mech Pilot, Star Sailor, Star Student will not be offered unless their trait requirements are met. You cannot get Mech Pilot at 2-1, which doesn't make sense for a lot of the early game. You can't get Star Sailor at the beginning of the game. Can't get Star Student in the beginning of the game unless you actually have the trait requirements. So there it is. Adaptive skin getting buffed again. I think this is the 3rd time they're buffing it. 4th time. Surely this is the one. I mean, adaptive skin, not very good because it's basically not even the jack of all trades. It's the joker of all trades. This thing's a joke. It's just embarrassing. Not very good. But maybe it is more pickable now. I'm still not excited about it, but we'll see. All Out got buffed. Hey, All Out Cassante. I mean, All Out Cassante, it's back. We'll see. We'll see if All Out Cassante can make a return here. Best defense. The damage has been reduced. Huge nerf with percentage-wise alongside the Star Guardian nerfs across the board. Blink attack has now been buffed. Double Strike has now been buffed, which is actually a pretty big deal. Double Strike was already pretty decent at the baseline, pretty solid. I don't think it was like true bis on anyone, but now it might be just like a really good one to default towards if you don't know what to pick. Finalists, this is the one that says if players are dead, they give you damage amp. So they're buffing finalists to take it if, I guess, no one's dead. You get 15. 15 is like as if one died already. Gathered Force is getting nerfed. This is the one that people are playing on Jinx the most often. So that's another nerf to the Star Guardian comp. Max Vitality is getting buffed. 20 HP instead of 12. Holy cow. Max Vitality might actually... Okay, it's probably still not going to be great. But I mean, that looks impressive. It looks impressive. No, that's a huge buff. It's almost like doubling, basically. Maybe Max Vitality is crazy now. Who knows? Not Done Yet has been buffed from 8 to 6. So Not Done Yet is you die 8 times and you get a bunch of extra stats. So usually you sack the early game. Now you'll have it starting at 3-1 if you have it die every round, including the PvE round. Remember, Not Done Yet, I believe, should count for PvE deaths. So if your unit dies to Krugs, it should have it ready for 3-1. Over 9,000. The attack damage, AP, and the attack scaling has been nerfed. So over 9,000, a little bit too good again. Shine Brighter. This is Lux's damage. This is Lux's carry one. I talk about how they nerf Soul Fighter. Maybe that hurts other things about Soul Fighter, but they're buffing Shine Brighter Lux. Maybe Lux reroll is back on the menu. Again, the meta's going to change a lot. Even though it's like a small in terms of like the scope of changes, some of these I expect the meta to be pretty different. Sky Piercer has been nerfed. Way too ubiquitous, and I guess, Noxious Trap is around, so yeah, Sky Piercer taking a little bit of a hit there. Star Sailor, they're actually buffing Star Sailor's impact. Star Sailor now increased to 33%, which is not insignificant. That's a huge percentage. It's 33 extra percent that you get for all the Star Guardian bonuses. But they're reducing the weight of both Star Guardian and Star Student. And the trait requirements, this is important. In order to get Star Sailor offered, you have to have 4 Star Guardians in. So you no longer have to bench every Star Guardian on the board. You can instead play 3 Star Guardians and then Fruit. 5 Battle Academias required for Star Student as well. So they're reducing the weight. It's not the most common thing you see them anymore, and increasing it. So a little bit less of the mechanical bench everything, Fruit, rebench. It just feels tedious. Tiny Terror health threshold has been buffed, so it activates earlier. Actually, I couldn't tell if this was a buff or a nerf. I'm pretty sure it's a buff because it just gets you the activation earlier, and that's good. So that way it's not so low HP. Trickster has been disabled, and 07 for Trickster. You know what? It's okay. Honestly, Trickster is just kind of obnoxious. We had our fun, so... And Trickster was basically enabled for Darius and Jace. Sorry, Darius. Yeah, you could get it on Jace. You could also get it for Katarina. You could also get it for some hero augments like Trickster Vi, Trickster, Hero Augment Garen. And those were pretty obnoxious as well. So... and there's also some bugs. I think actually, you know what's the really sad thing about Trickster is that a lot of the time you would play Trickster and you'd be frustrated playing yourself because sometimes it would randomly quote bug. It wasn't really bug, but if they were like mid animation, they would teleport to the back and then jump back to the front line anyways. So it was like simultaneously frustrating for the person on the receiving end, and sometimes as you play it, it was like ugh. It was like the one I'm working sometimes. It's not a bug. It's just like a unfortunate series of interactions, I guess, because I think that's exactly what is happening. Like Darius would be mid-cast for something else, but he would teleport to the back and then jump to the front. So Unflinching Omnivamp is buff, so unflinching users like that extra Omnivamp. With the BT buffs as well, maybe the double Omnivamp lovers will be really good. Veteran is getting nerfed. They're nerfing the Janna veteran comp, but they're now moving it to primary on all available champions. So you're no longer fishing veteran for a huge amount of the portion of the game, hoping that you hit the Janna fruit. They're removing that pain point. That's a big part of a lot of these fruit changes, trying to help remove the pain points. And then Wait's attack speed has been nerfed. Because Waits is very good. Waits is just very good. The last set of power-up changes, the following champions have their power-ups pool altered. So, for example, we talked about Noxus Trap. That's the new one that gives you Burn and Shred and Sunder. They're removing those from Janna. So, and this is actually a big deal because now you won't be, not only will you be offered Noxus Trap, but you're just one fewer option. There's one fewer option. So, the Janna pool is more concentrated now. Sky Pierce, Solar Breath gone. Jinx removed Double Strike, Attack Expert, and Power Fawn, and she got these three, right, that we saw earlier, like Fury, Break, Corner Carry, and Super Mega. Malzahar removed these utilities. Senna removed the utilities. Twisted removed the utilities, and that all lines up with this, right? Noxious Trap on these units. So, honestly, this slide is sort of redundant. But Twisted Fate moves the secondaries. Soul Chipper. Cool. And then Shen, Twilight Assault. Can also, Shen can also corner carry Fury Break and Stormbender. Okay. That's all they listed. I feel like there's more. I feel like there's more because like technically they added this, like Jinx added, but they also added a bunch of these as well. So, okay. And then finally, this is the last slide before we go into predictions and reflections. The bug fixes. Augment filtering is no longer available on 2.1. You're not going to be able to tailor augments. Their official commentary, this is literally quoted verbatim from their patch notes. Last patch, augments on 2.1 started filtering based on your fielded units. While subtle, this could prove meta shaping while also limit access to things like champion augments and trait link augments for traits you were not fielding. As for this patch, we fixed the bug, allowing you to see a larger variety of augments on 2.1. So this was something that was available this patch. You can tailor, no longer the case. Number 2, during planning phase, Best Friends now displays a visual effect on units that meet its requirement. Hooray, awesome, thumbs up. Now you can see if you're missing Best Friends value. 3, fix some instances where Rammus sound effects wouldn't always be removed. Rammus pissing? Crystal Gambit's 210 reward can no longer very rarely grant no reward or cursed vampiric scepter. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, they if they sometimes it give you an artifact anvil and it would give you a suspicious trench coat, but trench coat got removed from the game, it would give you nothing. Or perhaps it would somehow echo, rewind time, and go back and pull an artifact called Cursed Vampiric Scepter, which is not in the game either. So there's some weird bugs with that. And then finally, Bramble's Vest's 8% damage reduction against attacks no longer applies before enemies' bonus true damage is calculated. This affects pre-mitigation true damage from sources like Soulfire Trade. That I didn't even realize was a thing. But I guess apparently Bramble Vest was really good against true damage bonus. So Bramble Vest was hard counter. It was not hard, but like countering Soul Fighter a little bit more than intended. And that's it for all the bug changes. There's only 5 changes as listed. So here are my initial impressions. I think the biggest losers. Again, this is just a guess, right? And I have what I wrote last patch as well, just to help keep myself accountable. But I don't know if Star Guardians is unplayable, but they definitely got nerfed a lot. They got nerfed in terms of the quantity. There are a lot of things to be nerfed. They also did give them other things, like Jinx got more power-up fruits, for example. So same thing with Poppy. So maybe it's still sticking around. They also buffed Seraphine, so it's possible that's the case. But I do think Star Guardians is taking a pretty big hit. Contesting Monster Trainer, definitely do not contest Monster Trainer now. I think maybe 2 people could play it, and especially if Smolder becomes better than Cogmaw. Maybe you have one Cogmaw, one Smolder now. Trickster comps are just dead for obvious reasons. Those are just removed. Augments, protagonists, keepers, tiny team, nerfed hero augments. Those are also big losers for obvious reasons. Then Fishbones. I feel like Fishbones is dead, but like maybe the stats on it are just like really good because 50 AD is kind of a lot. So I wrote Fishbones, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm even right about that. The biggest buffs in my opinion, Ashe and Duelist. I think Ashe got a huge amount with the Duelist stuff. They buffed Udyr, they buffed GP, they buffed Ashe, they buffed things around her. They gave her different fruits. They buffed other items as well. So we'll see if Ash ends up becoming good here. Like maybe fish bones on Ash is good. Maybe that's the thing. Fast 9 legendaries, man. If you didn't see the changes to the 5 costs are getting buffed across the board. So I feel like Fast 9, it might be a Fast 9 patch. It really might be. We'll see. But the 5 costs look great if you can get there. They're just buffs across the board. The amount of power-ups that got offered as well, I listed some of them, like Noxus Trap and Tentacle Smash, but like all the 2x KO ones look like a lot of them are pretty good. I can imagine a world where they're really powerful. So I just wrote like some of them. And Veteran also becoming more consistent is good. Not Done Yet being more consistent is really good. These are just like really, really big buffs. Rise also just gets like a big buff out of nowhere. Okay, not really out of nowhere. Rise was like underperforming for the Mentor comp, but Rise also, don't forget, Rise got a huge buff. And then I do think the item changes to Ionic Spark and Bloodthirster are a pretty big deal. I'm not sure what to think about the mech changes. I assume that means that mech will be slightly more playable instead of just like these niche all or nothing, but we'll see. I don't know how reliable Al Cassante could be because I think the hardest part about Cassante is it's hard to hit both Cassante and it's hard to hit All Out, but they did buff it. And then I'm not sure about some of the other artifact changes. We'll have to see. And if you want to see my predictions from last patch and laugh at me for being wrong, I said that the biggest this is from previous patch. Viego Stretch Your Arms, I mean, that makes sense. 9 lives, care package, caretakers. Honestly, that's not too bad. The PV power-up stacks like Golden Edge. Yeah. Hero augments. I was wrong about Mundo, but I was right about Zach. The biggest winner is Ari and 3 cost rerolls. Gangplank was not, but Katarina was good. R farming at 4-3. I don't really feel like Braum was particularly good. I was definitely not that right about Volibear. And Mech also being part of it. And then I did say that Akali and Ashe were going to be a little bit... like they changed a lot of Akali and Ashe, but I thought they were going to be weak. Akali ended up being pretty good, and Crystal Gambit ended up being really good. And I guess I don't really know what to think about the Titans rework. Also, Monster Trainer on average was weak, but Kog ended up being really good. So that's it. That's me. That was last patch. This is this patch. And there you go. So that's the end of the patch notes rundown. So thanks for everyone who are watching and reading. If you want to check out this slide, you can always go to my chat, type !patch like everyone else is doing right now. You'll get my Canva. It's free for everyone, whether you're watching this on Twitch or YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, please sub or check out my other stuff like on YouTube, Frodan TV or Frodan 2, or you can watch me stream as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for checking it out, and have fun on the new patch, everyone. Thanks for viewing. Bye.